Bubba. Hi. Hey guys, today I decided to sit down and play with makeup again, and I got this kind of pink rainbow sherbet-esque look. I did it a couple days ago and just really liked it, and so I wanted to make it again for you guys. If you want to see how I got it, you can keep watching. Okay, so first going in with the Benefit Brow Pomade, I start by filling in the tail of my brow, and then once there's a little bit less product on the brush itself, I move towards the front using short hair like strokes. Then going in with the NYX Micro Brow Pencil to add a little bit more depth and definition, I'm focusing that again on the tail of my brow, kind of more so on the bottom half of my brow. And taking the Benefit Brow ZINGS powder and setting all those cream products in place so they last all day. Next, I'm priming my lids with the Tarte Shape Tape. Just cancels out any veins or discoloration, and I blend that out with a Real Techniques sponge, making sure all the creases are gone before I go in and set it with the Wet n Wild eyeshadow in Creme Brulee, packing that all over my lid, making sure that none of it is tacky, otherwise eyeshadows can skip. Now taking the Tarte blush in Party and using that as my first transition shade on a fluffy brush. Buffing that everywhere. As another transition shade, I am taking that middle shade from an ABH blush palette and kind of buffing that everywhere. I just put the other one, but this one made it a little bit brighter. And then with one more light pink shade from the Colourpop She's a Rainbow palette on that same brush, I'm deepening up my crease just a tiny bit more, buffing and blending, making sure all the edges are seamless. Now taking that hot pink shade from the Rainbow palette on a smaller, more concentrated and precise brush, bringing that tighter in my crease and a little bit more on the outer corner of my eye. I tapped off the excess so it wasn't too pigmented when I went in, and then I go in and I blend out the edges with a clean fluffy brush. I went in with my finger and intensified the outer corners and went back and forth between blending and tapping more product on until I got the look that I wanted. Now taking the Modern Renaissance palette in the shade Love Letter and doing a similar thing as that last shade with the same brush, but really focusing that on the outer corner of my eye, bringing it very slightly into the crease, not bringing it up too high. Again, tapping off the excess before you go in and blending that out with a clean fluffy brush. Now going in with the Tarte Shape Tape, I am blanking out the inner portion of my lid, not necessarily making a cut crease, but just giving myself a blank canvas. Then I go in with a flat shader brush and blend out those edges, making sure that everything's smooth. Then with the So Jaded palette from Kathleen Lights and Colourpop, I'm taking the shade My Precious on that same flat shader brush and packing that all over where I put the concealer. Now taking the yellow shade from the Colourpop palette and popping that in the center of my lid, right above my pupil. Taking the orange shade, I'm taking my finger again and placing that right next to the yellow. Now with that hot pink shade, I am packing that on the very outer corner of my lid next to the orange. And then going back in with that yellow on a flat shader brush to re-intensify it. And doing the same with the orange shade, making sure all the colors are seamlessly blended together. Now taking the First Aid Beauty Skin Tint and the Wet n Wild Photofocus foundation on the back of my hand. I'm just mixing the two to give me something with a little bit less coverage. Patting that on the areas of my face that have the most redness and discoloration and blending it out with a Real Techniques sponge. And this doesn't give me a lot of coverage, but it balances out the skin tone just a little bit. Now going in with the Instant Age Rewind Concealer from Maybelline and canceling out my dark circles under my eye and then any other discoloration that foundation didn't cover up. Blending that out with a sponge again, making sure all of the creases are gone before I go in with the Coty Airspun powder with a small velour puff under my eyes, cleaning up the eyeshadow a little bit on the edges and buffing that on the rest of my face to set the foundation, sweeping away any excess. Then going in with the Wet n Wild contour palette in Dulce de Leche. I'm contouring with that just on the perimeters of my face. Giving my face a little bit more definition, focusing on my hairline, bringing it in, and adding in some more warmth with the Butter Bronzer from Physicians Formula. Bringing that one a little bit more on my nose. Now going in with that same Anastasia blush trio, I'm mixing all three of the shades, focusing more so on the lighter of the two, popping that on the apples of my cheeks and then balancing out a little bit on my forehead and nose. Going in with the Essence Pure Nude Highlighter in Be My Highlight, I'm hitting the high points of my face, focusing mostly on my cheekbones, my nose, and my Cupid's bow. Now going in with the Tarte blush in Party again, running that on my lower lash line with a small shader brush. And now taking that light matte pink shade again and running that a little bit lower on my lower lash line with a blending brush and taking that peach shade and popping that right in the center of my lower lash line with that same brush to balance out the pink or the orange and the yellow. Now taking a Love Letter from the Modern Renaissance palette on a wet liner brush and lining my upper lash line. Then I go in and I curl my lashes before adding my wing. Now taking Pearl from that So Jaded palette and highlighting my inner corners, bringing that kind of on the inner third of my lower lash line. And taking my Precious again and highlighting my brow bone. Then I just go in with a clean fluffy brush again and blend out those edges. Now taking the Smashbox Crystallized Shimmer drops on the back of my hand, I'm loading up a flat shader brush and popping that on the center of my lid where my Precious meets that yellow shade. Making sure I'm doing patting motions and not sweeping motions, and blending it out with my finger. Now taking Diamond from the So Jaded palette and tapping that right on top for a little bit more glitter. I take a clean shader brush and just fluff away any excess glitter that went up too high in my crease. Now taking the Essence Clear Brow Mascara and setting my brows in place. With an e.l.f. brow brush, I'm just redefining my freckle right there after it got covered up with the concealer and giving my lashes a generous coat of the L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise Mascara. And loading up my lower lash line as well. Taking the Essence lip liner in Lost in Love, I'm lining my lips. And this MAC lipstick Into the Future. Now with a little bit of the Tarte Shape Tape again, I'm just patting a tiny bit on the center of my lid and making sure it's really blended out. If you add too much, like I did, it can look a little bit crusty, but that just made the lips a little bit more nude. Now going in with the MAC Cream Sheen Lip Gloss, and on the Scene, I'm adding that. And that's the finished look. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.